It is Boxing Day, but was a Miami Dolphins coach, specifically the passing game specialist, throwing shots at Tua Tagovailoa earlier this week? We will discuss that. Plus, also, Anthony Weaver made it clear, and he put an indictment out on Chris Grier's job this past offseason in terms of roster construction. We'll discuss that. Plus, we will preview the final home game of the season for the Dolphins as they prepare to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got a lot to discuss, a lot to get into. Do me the favor, smash the like button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. And as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's going to put a touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphins fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you coming through for this episode. I am live for the first time since being back from Miami, and we got quite a bit to discuss. I was over there. I was doing my thing, but I was collecting notes, getting ready to come back for all of y'all. So we are going to talk about a few things, that's for sure. Shout out to everyone coming in the chat. As you come through, please do me the favor, smash that like button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. All right. We have a little bit to discuss here, but before we do, let's do a little housekeeping. All right. First things first, what I need you all to do is check out the sponsor of today's video. That, of course, is Sleeper. Listen, the NFL season is well underway and the playoffs are almost here, and that means you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash on daily fantasy football. Football has never been more exciting than it is right now with players like Jackson Dart, Devon Achane, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and so many more. Pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 1,000 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Use promo code PHINSide, and you get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Go ahead and check out Sleeper today. If you sign up using my code, you get a free $20 deposit courtesy of Sleeper, and you will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So check out Sleeper today. Also, I did tell you guys that I was going to do a little bit of a contest involving Sleeper, and I'm going to give you the details of that contest right here, right now. We'll run it for like the next week or so, okay? So let's get into this. I'm going to give you these details. Check this out. So download the Sleeper app. That's step one. Step two, sign up using code Phinside. All right. Step three, if you deposit a minimum of $10, okay, first of all, you'll get that $10 matched by Sleeper. But once you deposit that $10 after using my code, send a screenshot of the deposit and the use of my code to PhinsideTheNFL@gmail.com. The fifth stage is you will be entered to win one of three prizes. All right. Now, what are those three prizes? I have a brand new pair of Miami Dolphins house slippers to give away. I have a Jalen Waddle, all right, a Jalen Waddle Sundays at the Rock t-shirt to give away. And I have a team set pack of 2020 Don Ross football for the Miami Dolphins. So you got the whole 2020 rookie class in there, et cetera, et cetera. All these prizes are worth more than $10. So you sign up, you will have a chance to be entered into a contest that is going to have value higher than what you are depositing. So I am doing a contest with Sleeper. So if you want to enter it to have a chance to win one of those 3 prizes, whether you want the house slippers, whether you want the Jalen Waddle t-shirt, whether you want the cards, there you go. Those are the steps. And I will remind you guys every time, but those are going to be the steps to enter this Phinside the NFL and Sleeper contest. All right. So go do that. Remember to send the screenshot to phinsidethenfl@gmail.com and you will be entered to that contest and we will draw a winner. All right. So that is that. Now, if you've already signed up, send me proof that you used the code and already deposited $10. We're good to go. All right. If you've already signed up. So, let's keep it rolling here. All right. I want to talk about an interesting bridge quarterback. All right. I'm going to bring this name up again. I brought him up in the offseason, but I don't think enough people are talking about him. Sam Howell. I mean, Sam Howell right now is with the Philadelphia Eagles. Sam Howell has bounced around a little bit. My whole point with where I'm going with Sam Howell is this, all right? You've got a guy who, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards in the NFL already. What's your backup situation going to be next year? It's not going to be Zach Wilson, right, at all. If you're going to roll with Quinn Ewers, I mean, Sam Howell, Quinn Ewers, both young players, high upside still. I mean, Sam Howell is still only 25 years old, right? Sam Howell, we remember when he was in Washington, he threw for almost 4,000 yards in that 2023 season. Now, that was a bad Washington team that he was working with. But since then, he's been in Seattle, right? He was in Seattle for 2024. Now he's in Philadelphia. So he's been through a few systems. He's been with a few teams. I mean, this is a guy who, I'd give up like a 7th round pick, right? I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, they traded a 5th round pick for Howell. And the Eagles, right? They traded a 5th and a 7th for him. So, if we can land a guy like Sam Howell for maybe a 6th or 7th round pick, that would be an interesting option for me because they're not bringing back, Zach Wilson, whatsoever. Now, I know a lot of people were really liking what they saw from Malik Willis, especially in that Green Bay game. I am down for Malik Willis. I loved him coming out of Liberty, if you'll remember. Same draft, Malik Willis is interesting. He was making some nice throws. He's made some nice throws in all the games he's come in. I think LaFleur's done a really good job with him in terms of his development, better than what he got in Tennessee. I think these are some decent bridge options, some young bridge options. Sam Howell, Malik Willis. These are some interesting options to bring in as a potential quarterback too, in my estimation. You know what I mean? If you're going to roll with Quinn Ewers or if you're going to draft someone next year, right? I think those are interesting options. And listen, if your whole idea is, hey, we aren't going to take anyone high or really target a quarterback in 2026. And 2027 is when we really want to start diving in with that potentially really talented class. I mean, let's go. Those are options right there to get you through. Because we ain't... Listen, if you're targeting the 2027 quarterback class, the goal isn't really to win games, right? The goal is not going to be to win games. So, I think, those would be two young guys, whether Malik Willis or Sam Howell, that you could bring in and you could just create an intriguing competition. Keep Quinn Ewers in the building and see what you got there. You bring in one of those two between Malik Willis and Sam Howell. You pair them with Quinn Ewers. It's a little bit of a youth movement. Now, is that going to frustrate the likes of maybe Jalen Waddle? Sure, it would. I'd bring Darren Waller back too, but especially if Frank Smith's still here. But I think if Frank Smith is not here and Mike McDaniel's staff is gone, then I don't know how much Darren Waller is really going to be in play to come back here. And are you going to get a Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers in this draft? I don't know. But I think there are some interesting young options out there for real, because look is Sam Howell displacing Jalen Hurts anytime soon? I don't think so. So they'd probably be open, and that's having a guy with starting experience. Even if your plan is to go with Quinn Ewers, if something happens to Quinn Ewers, you got a guy with some starting experience out there. So, and the thing is with a Howell and a Malik, they're still young, where if you happen to hit, you happen to hit. And all of a sudden, it's no longer an issue, right? All of a sudden, it's no longer, well, what are we going to do? Now, you're taking flyers. I'm not sitting here saying these guys are long-term answers by any stretch of the imagination. But hey, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to take flyers on guys. You think, especially with a guy like Malik Willis, let's talk about him specifically. That's a very high ceiling. That's a very, very high ceiling for sure. So, we'll see. But man, 2027, that is going to be the interesting class. Obviously, you got Lenore Sellers going back, so he'll be eligible next year. Arch Manning will be coming out. Julian Sayin will be coming out. I think CJ Bailey will be eligible. Sam Levitt, who's transferring from Arizona State, he'll be eligible. Dylan Raiola will be eligible. There is going to be a lot of guys in that 2027 class potentially eligible to come out, so it's going to be interesting to see who really comes. Gunnar Stockton, right? I think DJ Lagway will be eligible. Darian Mensah, who I was saying, hey, might have gone into my top 5 if he would have came out this draft. He's going back to Duke, right? So Marcel Reed, he needs a lot of work though. Marcel Reed, no anticipation. That game sealing interception he threw against the Hurricanes was he didn't anticipate the window. He was late and he got picked. So 2027 is going to be very interesting. And then obviously you guys know where I'm at with 2028. You guys already know what time it is. Jaden Maiava is coming out next year too in 2027, right? So my boy Brandon Swordsby is going to be out in 2027, right? Aiden Childs is going to be out in 2027. Josh Hoover. So 2027 is going to be something seriously, potentially very, very deep. But then 2028, you get into Mason Heichsteidel will be, eligible. Jawan Kwe Sangapatele, Carr from Notre Dame will also be eligible. 2028 is going to have a lot of interesting quarterbacks. The next two classes have super high potential, man. There is super high potential in in the next couple of drafts. That's for sure. But man, we'll see. There's going to be a lot of guys. Malik Washington, Bryce Underwood, Bear Backmeyer, 2028. So, man, you got a lot of guys that are going to be eligible over the next 2 years that are going to be very interesting options for the Miami Dolphins. That's for sure. So, and next year, again, stacked next year, Sayin, Manning, Maiava, Sellers, Raiola, Levitt, Sorsby, Legway will be able to come out. Mensa, Hoover, Childs. Next year, it's definitely looking more stacked than it is this year. It looks like if Moore comes out and Mendoza come out, it's going to be a steep drop off after them. And guys like Taylor and Green will all of a sudden be boasted up by their combine and their traits and such. So, yeah. But another thing I want to discuss too, because I saw it firsthand, man. The Dolphins in the third quarter this year. I'm sitting there at the game this past weekend, Quinn Ewers' debut, and man, those wheels fell off after that Theo Weiss OPI. No, Brandon Sorsby isn't contemplating. Brandon Sorsby's entering the transfer portal. He's not coming out this year. The wheels are falling off, man. Like the way the wheels fell off in that third quarter, it's like that, and it was a terrible call, right? 49-yard gain negated by that Theo Weiss OPI. It was a terrible call. 110%. It was a terrible call. But man, this team in third quarters, it's not good. It keeps getting worse and worse, and they've been outscored 113-27 in the third quarter. And then you got McDaniel coming out here and taking responsibility for it. Good, sure, take responsibility. Add more to the pile. It's obviously in-game adjustments aren't good enough coming out of halftime. Over the last 2 weeks, between the Steelers and the Bengals, the Dolphins have been outscored 35-0 in the third quarter. That is not good. Like, come on. And you know what happened after that? Theo Weiss OPI negated that big play from Achane. Greg Dulcich fumbled the very next play. And then the wheels fell off. Interception on the next drive. Then we turned the ball over on downs and another interception. Now, the first interception wasn't necessarily on Quinn. Ball popped up, but the execution gets sloppy in the third quarter. They look unprepared coming out in the third quarter. Got to be. Yeah, and John Mateer coming out in 2027. He's not going to come out this year, I don't think. But, man, you got to get that. You got to get it together in that third quarter. And, is there really much time left in the season to see if they can improve that? I don't think so. I don't really think so right now. So, that it's becoming a serious problem that third quarter. And it just continues to pile on to the fact that what's the point with Mike McDaniel right now? I was pretty angry after the game. I've said this, people got to understand my difference in reporting and what I want. I've been pretty consistent. If you can find a better head coaching option, I'm down. Like, you don't got to convince me I'm down. I just don't want Gruden. I don't want McCarthy. I'd rather give Steve Spagnuolo a shot, to be honest with you. But, man, I just don't know how you can, I don't care what I hear privately. I don't care what Schefter or Rappaport say, which, they had conflicting reports. Before the game, it was basically being said, oh, McDaniel's safe. After the game, Schefter, oh, no one's safe. I don't know. Unless I said this, unless you're going to win 2 out of these 3 last games with Quinn Ewers, what are we doing here? Because really what it's going to look like, especially if you lose out and you get whipped in the last 3 games, you know what it's going to look like? It's going to look like what we've seen in previous years. You can't get the backup right. And this is now going to be another guy you've drafted. Skylar Thompson was one you drafted. Now this guy. You can't get the backup quarterback right. You can't get the offense humming at all with a backup in, unless you're playing what? Last year, the worst defense in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. So, I just keep sitting here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know how Mike McDaniel survives Black Monday. So, Now, if he's done what I've said he would probably do, and that's try and convince the owner that he deserves a shot with another quarterback, then there you go. But we got to lose out here. I've said this. Lose out, get to 7 or 8, and move up and go get Dante Moore. Let's go. All right. So let's talk about, there's a few coaching interviews this week, and there's two portions out of the interviews process that I really want to discuss. Number one, Anthony Weaver. And let me play what I'm talking about from Anthony Weaver, because Anthony Weaver, I mean, we had seen him. I had said early in the season, I felt like he was throwing Chris Grier under the bus. And now that Chris Grier's gone, it really isn't stopping for Anthony Weaver. Listen to what he said here.
I know we're not quite ready to do a full season autopsy. We still have 2 games left. But in looking at the first 15 games from a big picture treetop perspective, what's something that has to be better next year and moving forward?
I think whatever we assemble, right, as a group defensively, we need an opportunity to grow earlier, right? We need these people to be brought together earlier than they were. A lot of the guys that we ended up playing with either got here at the start of training camp, were kind of hurt in training camp, missed some of camp. So a lot of the growth we were trying to do as a defense occurred early in the season. When you combine that with the youth movement we were trying to make, that's what's going to happen early. I think eventually it started to click for all of them, right, in terms of what the expectation and what we were trying to get done. But we need to start to get that ball rolling earlier than August.
In that regard, do you think it was a mistake not to bring another veteran defensive tackle to play with Zach while the 3 rookies and Benito, while the 3 rookies were finding their way?
In hindsight, it's difficult to say. I thought Matt Butler, when he did play for us, was doing some good things out there. We were leaning on Benito and those guys while the maturation was occurring with those young bucks. But I wouldn't say that's just position specific. I think if you look at the defense as a whole, right, as it pertains to guys that were playing for us a year ago, it was like our 2 inside backers, right, Benito and Zach. Chop played, right, but like Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb hadn't really played for us. Our secondary was all new guys. You had the injuries to Cater and Storm Duck and some of those guys that had gotten a bunch of reps in the system. Even Cater in the spring, you knew he was about to take a jump. So we had to go through some growing pains early, just as we learned each other and they learned the defense, right? And in doing that, like that's why we had the bumps and bruises we had early. Now, that's no excuse for a week ago, right? We laid that egg, and we got to do right this week and make that right. But moving forward, we got to make sure in the off season, whoever's going to be a part of this, we need them here. We can't be piecemealing this thing in August.
I mean, any clearer than day there? I mean, he's talking about Chris Grier piecing together this secondary in August, and we can't be doing that. He's 110% right. It put the defense at a disadvantage. It put the defense behind the 8 ball. And this is something we talked about. They knew Ramsey wanted out in February, right? Free agency came, the draft came. They didn't do very much. They were stuck on Rasul and getting Rasul Douglas at their number. And he's 110% right. He is 110% right. You can't be building teams like that and expect better results than what you get. They need to use the early days of training camp and, the early days of the preseason to really start to get together and to get a grasp of everything. And again, a further indictment on Chris Grier, who I honestly don't know if Chris Grier is going to get another shot at a GM position. I really honestly don't know if that's going to happen. He might even be done. He might even just walk away. But Anthony Weaver, no lies told. No lies, not a single lie told about Anthony Weaver and what he had to say over Chris Grier. Just a further indictment of how Chris Grier, yes, he's made some good moves. Yes, he even made some good signings, especially this offseason. I mean, Rasul ended up being good. Jack Jones ended up being good, but they were too late. They're too late. And they put the coaching staff and the defense in its totality behind the 8 ball. And, we saw the early struggles. And you made a great point, too. I mean, Jalen Phillips and, Bradley Chubb, how much have they really played in this defense? So, I mean, just throwing Chris Grier under the bus, but rightfully so. I mean, not a single lie told about Anthony Weaver. Now, I want to address this. What's wrong with Gruden? Man put 2 Super Bowl rosters together. My friend, that Tampa Bay roster, I mean, Dungy, brother. Dungy put that together. All right. Let's not rewrite history here. And then I'll go even further than that. All right. Dungy put that Bucks team together. That's number one. And then Dungy put together the Colts team, right? That won with that one with Peyton Manning, right? When they beat the Chicago Bears. So Dungy is actually the one that put together 2 Super Bowl winning rosters, okay? Number one. Number two, Gruden. A few things. Number one, Gruden. How did his last tenure with the Raiders go? When we found out he had more power than the GM, the drafting was they took Ceylon Farrell. Do we not remember how high they took Ceylon Farrell? The drafting was terrible. The roster construction was terrible. The whole tenure ended up being terrible. Right? Now, number two, let's go back to that Bucks team that Dungy put together, that Gruden coached over the top. How long ago was that? 20 years ago? Almost 25 years ago? So this guy hasn't coached a Super Bowl roster in almost 25 years, and it wasn't even a roster he really put together? Okay. Now let's go and take it another step. No head coach has won a Super Bowl as the head coach of 2 different teams. Remember, Shula didn't do it. It was the NFL championship when he did it with the Colts. It wasn't the Super Bowl yet. So no coach has coached 2 different teams to a Super Bowl. Now, I laid out all the facts about Gruden and what he hasn't done in 20 plus years. You think he's going to be the one to change that? I think Gruden would be better off. Honestly, Gruden would be better off taking on a college team. So that's going to be a pass on Gruden for me. That's a pass. All right. Now, I got some interesting stuff to discuss with this next little piece here. All right. I want to talk about what Ryan Slowik said this week. If you guys don't know who Ryan Slowik is, he is the defensive backs coach and he is the pass game specialist for the Miami Dolphins. Okay? Now, if you'll remember, he's obviously been promoted. He's doing all this stuff, right? He was the outside linebackers coach. He was the senior defensive assistant. He's been here since 2022, right? So I want to discuss, and you'll remember, all right? His brother is obviously Bobby Slowik. All right. Actually, no, this is Bobby Slowik. Who am I talking about right now? It's Bobby Slowik, the senior passing game coordinator. I was telling you who his brother was. His brother had been here since 2022. He came here in 2025, right? And I get them confused. They look almost identical. Are they twins? Hold on. Are they twins? No, they're not. Yeah. What's his face is older. Ryan's older. Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to go over a little bit of what was said this week because I find it very interesting. I mean, people were like, did he take shots? Did he, like blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so this is Bobby Slowik. And Bobby Slowik, remember, before he arrived here, what did he do, right? He was a guy who was in Houston, right? Bobby Slowik was in Houston. And remember, he was the offensive coordinator in 2023 and 2024. Before that, he was the offensive passing game coordinator in San Francisco. And before that, he was the offensive pass game specialist. So this is what Bobby Slowik said. All right. I want you to listen to what Bobby Slowik said about Tua Tagovailoa. Because it says a lot. And then we're going to go further here because I got something to say about this.
Quantify maybe how much of the offense remains the same with him in, as opposed
Talking about
to
Quinn
maybe
Ewers.
how many different things he can open the offense up to, like we saw him successfully scramble, dive forward, the quarterback sneak. I don't think we would see previously. Just how many things are the same and different.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll start off with the scramble. I think part of what helped that was his first third down of the game. I've already talked about a few things that he can improve upon, and we get to a third down, we call play, and he holds onto the ball a little longer than he probably needed to, as far as what his read was and what he was looking at. But then he goes off schedule and he really makes a heck of a throw to Waller and makes a great play, but he took a shot, and it actually is shocking a little bit with young guys that kind of get you going, and a lot of times it calms you down, if anything, and I felt that with him. And then he just started from operation on, really owning everything. Now, is it a little different than Tua as far as, I think Tua is exceptional and special in how he can handle the huddle, command the huddle, own what we do on offense with, there's people moving everywhere before the ball snapped, and a lot of that was on Tua. And he almost never had an error in that regard. And I think that's a lot to handle, and I think Quinn is working to get there and is pretty dang close, but that's probably where there's just a few minute adjustments. There's a little bit of pre-snap stuff, but not a lot. We're still going to do everything that we do. And then I would say Tua is really exceptional at anticipatory throws, letting the ball go
This is
really
what he
early,
says.
particularly before receivers are even out of their break. And Quinn doesn't necessarily do that as naturally as Tua did, but he can make up for it. He's got a really whippy release, and he might throw it later, but it might get there at the same time because of how the ball just kind of fires off his wrist. So it's been fun to watch how different they are, and yet we don't have to change anything. Long answer that probably wasn't needed, but.
So I want you to think about what he says here. It's two things actually he says here. Two very interesting things that he really says here about Quinn Ewers. First of all, he basically says Quinn Ewers is almost caught up to Tua Tagovailoa and basically his order of operations and the understanding and getting everyone set in the offense. He basically says, yeah, Quinn's almost already there. He's almost there. Why does that matter? Tua's been in this offense since 2022. Ewers has been in this offense since April. So that's indictment number one. Indictment number two, he flat out is telling you Tua's arm isn't good enough. He's flat out telling you if Tua doesn't anticipate it, if Tua doesn't throw it early before the receiver's out of his break, it's not good enough. Whereas he basically told you, yeah, Quinn can afford to be a little bit late because he's got a better arm. That's basically what he's saying. Quinn can afford to be a little bit late on his reads, and Quinn can afford to be a little bit behind the anticipation curve than Tua because he's got a whippier release, because he's got a stronger arm. He basically told you right then and there, Tua's arm isn't good enough. That's basically what he's telling you. And what's crazy here is, guys, Ewers didn't have a top tier arm coming out of this draft. We're not talking about an absolute howitzer. We're not talking about an absolute cannon. We're not talking about a rocket. And what are we going back to? This is the result of Tua not putting in the work with the right people and the right amount of work in this past offseason. And his arms falling behind the 8 ball even further. I mean, that like, think about this. Let's put this in perspective. Tua's regression from not putting in the right work with the right people this offseason has led to a fact with a guy who was drafted in terms of velocity with like a third tier arm. They're saying, yeah, he can afford to be a little bit later than this guy because he's still getting it there faster than our quarterback. That's not good. And, you know, another interesting thing to me here too is notice how they put Slowik up there and not Darrell Bevell. I do find that very curious that we've got Slowik up there talking right after Anthony Weaver, but we don't got Darrell Bevell, the guy who's worked with him all these years, a guy who's been, you know, he's a quarterback coach. Yeah, you're putting the passing game specialist up there over the quarterback coach. I find that very, very interesting. And, you know, and maybe when the season ends, depending on how everything goes, I can tell you in more detail why that is actually so very interesting to me. But man, that is something that I would keep my eye on. Is that Mike McDaniel showing a little bit of his hand this offseason if he does happen to stay around? I don't know. But man, you know, and now we're seeing the result of Tua not working with Perform, who look at no one expected James Cook to be what he is. Perform got him there. No one expected him to be the Dalvin Cook impact out of here. Dalvin Cook in his best years worked to Perform. Last offseason, Tua working with 3D QB, the best quarterback coaches that basically half the quarterbacks in the league use, that Tom Brady and Drew Brees put on the map with Tom House. So he's working with all these people with proven results. And look at what we get. We get 2023 Tua. We get that 6-game stretch last year where he comes back from concussion where those were over 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, 1 pick. You know, almost an 80% completion percentage. 120 passer rating. And that's all gone now. And I just feel like now we're at the stage where you have coaches propping up Quinn Ewers at the cost of Tua Tagovailoa. And what I mean by that is you're propping up you're propping up Ewers by taking a slight at Tua in the same breath. You know what I mean? And hey, I don't think these are intentional shots. I think this is Slowik honestly just speaking his opinion, speaking his mind. So, and I mean, you can't say this. This is a joke, bro. Okay? Perform isn't the ideal work spot, then remind me who Tua was working with when Tua led the league in passing. Remind me who he was working with when he led the league in passing. Kind of crazy. And, you know, again, Slowik ain't lying. You can see the ball jumps out liver from Ewers' hand. It's not lying. You can see. And this is, again, a result of you're not putting in the work. You're not putting in the work. Period. And you're not putting in the work with the right people. You're not putting in the work with the people who got you to the point where you made $212 million. Last year, you're working with 3D QB. Best quarterback coaches in the world. You're not putting in the work with them anymore either. What do you expect? When you're not that great of an athlete, you got to put in the work, man. And the work just ain't being put in. It is what it is. So, people are like, oh, Slowik's taking shots at Tua. I don't think he's taking shots so much as he's just speaking the truth. He's just speaking his truth. And are these guys just speaking what's on their mind? I mean, Anthony Weaver's throwing Grier under the bus. Slowik's basically putting down Tua to prop up Ewers. Are we just at that stage where the gloves are off because they all don't know if they're going to be back next year? That's another interesting question. So we'll see. Interesting stuff, man. And shout out to Tua. I mean, he's still, helping out Ewers, buying gifts for his teammates. I mean, he's still being as good of a teammate as he possibly can be. So it is what it is at this point, right? It is what it is. All right, let's get into this week 17 matchup because we do sure have a lot to discuss, a lot to go over. We got the Bucs this week. It's crazy, we are only 2 games away. 2 games away from the season being over and being right back to trying to get ready for the draft, get ready for the offseason. It's crazy, all that hype we had coming into the season of, okay, well, let's see if they can correct what was wrong last year, blah, 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 all that. It is no longer a dream. The reality is things just didn't work out this year. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the games this weekend. Who is my GM and head coach candidate? I've given my GM list, right? Like if I could have anyone, I really like Ray Agnew. I'd bring Ray Agnew in over. The coaching thing, it's a little like I like Shula, I like LaFleur, both from the Rams, but they're first-time guys. You're going to roll the dice on a first-time guy? Second chance guy, I like Steve Spagnuolo. You want to go to the college ranks and try and get a Marcus Freeman, who I heard the Giants are circling around, or maybe even a Lincoln Riley. I don't know if he'll ever leave, but Lincoln Riley has at least proven he can develop quarterbacks. The coaching cycle isn't strong. I keep talking about this. Now, if Harbaugh becomes available, I've been saying since the beginning of the season, I would trade for Harbaugh. If you said to me, hey, you can get Harbaugh or Tomlin, I would take Harbaugh over Tomlin because Harbaugh has proven he can get the quarterback right. He won a Super Bowl with Flacco, and look at what he's turned around and done with Lamar Jackson. The problem with Mike Tomlin is, he's had 19 straight winning seasons, but he hasn't been able to get the quarterback right since Ben Roethlisberger left. So that is a worry to me. So let's get into this game preview, though. All right. Let's start off because I know some of y'all are going down there. So at kickoff, it's going to be around 79. It's going to be between 78, 79 the whole game. You're going to have some wind out of the southeast, probably around 6 miles per hour, gusts around 6 miles, 7 miles per hour, mostly clear. Humidity would be about 60%. Basically, no cloud cover, no chance of precipitation, it seems. So you guys are in for a good one in terms of weather. Now, is it going to be a good game? Who knows? Because Tampa Bay, they're fighting for their playoff lives, and the Dolphins are out here fighting to play spoilers. Now, who is going to be available for the team and who is not going to be available for the team? When you look at the injury report, Minka Fitzpatrick is out. Isaiah Johnson tore his ACL at practice this week. He is now out. Benito Jones is out. D. Eskridge is doubtful. Aaron Brewer is considered a game-time decision right now. Tyrell Dodson is also looking like he might be a game-time decision. Andrew Meyer was a full participant. If Aaron Brewer can't go, we might see Andrew Meyer's first action Jason Sanders, it hasn't been decided whether it's going to be him or Patterson yet. He's questionable. Darren Waller, Ifeatu Melifonwu, Jalen Waddle, good to go. Now, on the other side, Elijah Cansey, who's on IR, obviously won't be there. Anthony Nelson won't be there, but it could be a big day for people like Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson because Tristan Wirfs is going to be out. So no Tristan Wirfs, but everyone else here, from Levante David to Mike Evans to Chris Godwin, etc., they are expected to be full go. So no Tristan Wirfs. So are we going to see a big day from Chop Robinson? It's going to be interesting to see. Now, how do these teams stack up when you compare them? When you look at this right now, total offense, 24th for the Dolphins, 23rd by the Bucs. Not that great. Only about 7 yards differentiates the two teams. The Bucs right now have the 22nd passing offense. The Dolphins have the 25th, and that number probably going to get much better. They're both averaging under 200 yards per game right now. Rushing offense, the Dolphins averaging about 122 yards per game, 13th best in the NFL. The Bucs, they are 20th in the NFL. They're averaging about 116.9 yards per game. Scoring offense, Dolphins are averaging about 21.1 points per game. The Bucs are averaging about 23.1 points per game, so a 2-point differential. Sacks allowed, the Bucs have allowed 33. Dolphins have allowed 32, so they're neck and neck there. Third down offense, the Bucs are converting at a 40% clip. The Dolphins are converting at a 34.7% clip. On defense, though, kind of a similar story. 19th best total defense do the Dolphins own, while the Bucs 22nd. Only about 4 yards separates these two teams in terms of total defense and yardage allowed per game. Passing defense, the Bucs are a terrible passing defense. They're relying about 242 yards per game, 27th in the NFL. Dolphins are relying about 209. So pretty big difference, right? 33-yard difference. Rushing defense, the Dolphins, it ain't good right now. 130.3 yards per game allowed. The Bucs are only allowing about 101.3 yards per game. So a stout run defense. Scoring defense, the Bucs are allowing about 25.1 points per game. Dolphins are allowing about 24.6. So literally about half a point separating these two teams. Sacks, the Bucs have the Bucs have had 35 sacks. The Dolphins have had 36, so a difference of 1 sack between these two teams. Third down defense, the Bucs are allowing teams to convert at a 41.1 conversion clip. Dolphins, 14th best third down defense, allowing teams to convert at about 38.9. Takeaways, the Bucs have 20. The Dolphins have 17. The Dolphins have not had a takeaway since the Jets win when they had 3. Giveaways, the Dolphins, they have 22. Look at the Bucs. They don't give the ball away very much. 12. So you got to ask yourself, is this going to be another game, third in a row, where this defense can't force a turnover? You know, because you're going against a team that they're not careless with the football. So we'll see. Now, let's get into the offensive keys to victory here. All right. And let's talk about this. All right. Ewers has got to play clean football. I'm sorry. You listen. I know one of those interceptions, the first one, you can't blame it all on him. The ball popped up. It was a decent throw. That second throw towards the sideline that got picked off was not a good throw. You got to be clean with the football. You can't be careless with the football or they're going to lose. The way Quinn is with this offense so far, the worst thing you could do is dig yourself in a hole. I mean, we can't sit here and expect a guy like Quinn Ewers to dig us out of a hole. That's not fair for his second start, but he also plays a role in that. And playing clean football, taking care of the football is going to help that out. All right. You got to be prepared for defense that's top 10 in stopping the run. Right? I mean, we already went over this. We just went over it now. All right. you are talking about a team that is only 7th in the NFL, only allowing 101.3 yards per game. Right? We're the 13th best rushing offense, averaging about 122.4 yards per game. They know we're going to give them a heavy dose, or plan to give them a heavy dose of Achane and Ollie and Jalen Wright. They're at a point where they're probably like, sell out against the run, force Quinn Ewers to beat us. So you better be prepared for that. You better be prepared for that. And then number 3, you got to make Darren Waller a focal point of your offensive game plan. All right. Him and Quinn were showing a little bit of chemistry. But on top of that, you go look at when the Bucs lost to the Falcons a couple weeks ago, 29-28. Kyle Pitts had 11 receptions for 166 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, am I going to sit here and call Darren Waller at this stage of his career Kyle Pitts? No, but he's still dynamic. We've seen it. We have seen it. If Kyle Pitts can give them that kind of work, you can go ahead and give them a heavy dosage of work. I mean, you go look at Trey McBride when they played the Arizona Cardinals. Trey McBride was the leading Cardinals receiver. Jacoby Brissett, 8 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. My point is, dynamic and playmaking tight ends can give them problems, as has been the case in the last 2 they've faced. Right? I mean, even going against the Rams, Colby Parkinson had 4 receptions for 41 yards and a touchdown. Darren Waller, Greg Dulcich, these are going to be keys here, right? Just going to be keys. Feed them the ball. Let them do their thing. This could be a potentially big, and hey, what's the best safety net for a young quarterback? Their tight end. So make Darren Waller a focal point, because they've shown recently, whether it's been Kyle Pitts, Trey McBride, whoever, they've had problems with guys who can threaten the seams. So Darren Waller all day. Let's go. Make him a focal point of this offensive game plan. All right. Defensive keys to victory. The Bucs have only had a 100+ yard rusher once this season. Do not allow the second. All right? Do not allow the second. No, it was not Bucky Irving. It was not Rashad White who ran for over 100 yards. It was actually Sean Tucker on November 16th against the Buffalo Bills. 19 carries, 106. Also had 2 touchdowns. But besides that, they haven't had a 100-yard rusher this season. So don't be the second team that allows a 100-yard rusher. I mentioned this when we were going over the team comparisons. The Dolphins haven't forced a turnover since the win over the Jets. They didn't force a turnover against the Steelers. They didn't force a turnover against the Bengals. You were going against a team that is not very turnover prone, right? The Bucs have only given away the ball 12 times. Baker's only thrown 8 interceptions. You're going to have to find a way to get back to forcing turnovers. You know, we talked about a tight end helping the young quarterback. Turnovers and drives with good starting field position are also going to be his best friend. And then number 3, it's going to be another big test for the Dolphins defense. And that's secondary specifically. I mean, we saw what happened last week. All right. We saw what went down. That contested catch that I believe it was it T. Higgins that made that contested catch or whatever? Should never have happened right in front of Jack Jones. Should never have happened. Should never have happened. Last week, you let those Bengals receivers have their way with you. Jamar Chase had 9 receptions for 109. T. Higgins, 3 receptions for 53 yards. Right? He had 162 yards between those two guys. It ain't going to get that much easier this week. Yeah, Emeka Ibuka has slowed down a little bit, but still, you got to put up with Emeka Ibuka. You got Mike Evans that is back now, right? Mike Evans is back now. You've got Chris Godwin. So, is Kate Otten going to give you problems? So you've got some serious weapons that this secondary could get stretched out a little bit by. And you got to ask, another big test for the secondary. Will they fail again like last week? Because they failed last week, no matter what anyone tries to tell you. So my matchup to watch for this game, Quinn Ewers versus Baker Mayfield, baby. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans were not on the right page last week. Baker threw the game-sealing interception to lose to Carolina. He's gonna, they're still in the playoff hunt. He's gonna have a little fire in his belly. Quinn Ewers, second start, another week under his belt to preparing with the ones. Are we going to see improvements? Are we going to see him anticipate windows a little bit better? Are we going to see him throw with a little bit better timing? Is he going to have even more control and command over the offense this week? And is he going to be able to take care of the football while putting up points? So we got a good old-fashioned quarterback face-off as my matchup of the week. Now, how do I see this game going? I do not think the Dolphins are going to win this game. I just don't. Now I didn't think we'd get blown out last week the way we did. And even Anthony Weaver said, that's on them. Where I'm at with this and my score prediction for this, I have the Dolphins losing this game 27-13. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think they're going to lose by 2 scores. You could get into a position where they're putting up points and we just can't keep up with it. And that's what I think is probably going to happen. So I don't have the, I honestly think the Dolphins are going to lose out. Let's be real here. We all saw the Broncos struggle but finish off the Chiefs. And I think we're going to be in a position next week where the Patriots are going to be playing for something, so we're going to see starters. Is this by design in terms of for the better draft pick? Your guess is as good as mine. I hope so. But spoiler alert, I'm probably not going to have us winning next week either. So, yeah, I think this is going to play out like a 6-11 season, and that's just it. So, yeah, but hey, listen. Tomorrow is about growth. Sunday is about growth. We want to see growth from Quinn Ewers. We want to see continued growth from the other rookies like Jordan Phillips, Zeke Biggers, Kenneth Grant, Jason Marshall Jr. is out there, etc. Growth and staying healthy. So we'll see. I'm going to tell you this much. I ain't holding my breath for any wins over the next 2 games. It'd be a pleasant surprise. It'd probably do Mike favors with Ross. But at this point, you got to ask yourself as a fan, do you want this team to do a guy like Mike McDaniel any favors heading into Black Monday? Because think about this. We're not only 2 weeks away from the end of the Dolphins 2025-2026 regular season. We could also be a little over 2 weeks away from real change starting in Miami that begins with the firing of Mike McDaniel. So, hey, That's why there's still something to watch. There's still something to watch for and hope for here. You want to see the growth and development of these young kids, and also you want to see how this plays out. And if a lot of people get their wish, that the Dolphins move on from Mike McDaniel. So, guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I appreciate each and every one of you coming through. I will be live on Sunday to live react to the game, and then we will do the post game and all of that. And then we will start the final week of the season for the Dolphins. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think of where we were, and we had hoped that they could turn this around and at least be a playoff team. And if we would have told you Tua would have been healthy the whole season, no one knew the wheels were going to fall off the way they did, but they have, and here we are. And now a lot of mistakes need to be rectified. And once again, this franchise needs to be fixed. So fins up all day, every day. I'll see y'all in the next one. Appreciate y'all. Smash that like button. I'll see y'all in the next one.